Summer 1902. Mark Twain writing to the President of the New York Western Union. The Pines, Yark Harbor, Maine. Dear Sir, I desire to make a complaint, and I bring it to you, the head of the company, because by experience I know better than to carry it to a subordinate. I have been here a month and a half, and by testimony of friends, reinforced by personal experience, I now feel qualified to claim as an established fact that the telegraphic services here is the worst in the world except that Boston. These services are actually slower than was the New York and Hartford services in the days when I last complained to you, which was 15 or 18 years ago, when telegraphic time and train time between the mentioned points was exactly the same, to wit, 3 hours and a half. 6 days ago, it was that raw day which provoked so much comment. My daughter was on her way up from New York, and at noon she telegraphed me from New Haven asking that I meet her with a cloak at Portsmouth. Her telegram reached me 4 hours and a quarter later, just 15 minutes too late for me to catch my train and meet her. I judged that the telegram traveled about 200 miles. It is the best telegraphic work I have seen since I have been here, and I am mentioning it in this place not as a complaint, but as a compliment. I think a compliment ought to always precede a complaint, where one is possible, because it softens resentment and ensures for the complaint a courteous and gentle reception. Still, there is a detail or two connected with this matter which ought perhaps to be mentioned, and now, having smoothed the way with a compliment, I will venture them. The head corpse in the New York Harbor office sent me that telegram, although he knew it would reach me too late to be of any value. 2. Also, he was going to send it to me by his boy. 3. That the boy would not take the trolley and come to the 2 miles in 12 minutes, but would walk. That he would be 2 hours and a quarter on the road, and that he would collect 25 cents for transportation for a telegram, which the HC knew to be worthless before he started. From these data, I infer that the Western Union owes me 75 cents. That is to say, the amount paid for combined wire and land transportation. A recoup provided for in the printed paragraph which heads the telegraph blank. By these humane and Christian stages, we now arrive at the complaint proper. We have had a grave case of illness in the family, and a relative was coming some 600 miles to help in the sick room during the convalescence period. It was an anxious time, of course, and I wrote and asked to be notified as to the hour of the expected arrival of this relative in Boston or in York Harbor. Being afraid of the telegraph, which I think ought to not be used in times of hurry and emergency, I asked that the desired message be brought to me by some swift method of transportation, by the milkman, if he was coming this way. But there are always people who think they know more than you do, especially young people. So, of course, the young fellow in charge of this lady used the telegraph, and at Boston of all places, except York Harbor. The result was, as usual, let me employ a statelier and exacter term and say historical. The dispatch was handed to the HC of the Boston office at 9 in the morning. It said, "Shall bring AS to you 11:45 this morning. The distance traveled by the dispatch is 40 or 50 miles. I suppose, as the train time is 5 minutes short of 2 hours, and the trains are so slow that they can't give a W telegram 2 hours and 20 minutes start and overtake it." As I have said, the dispatch was handed in at Boston at 9. The expected visitors left Boston at 9:40 and reached my house at noon, beating the telegram 2 solid hours and 5 minutes over. The boy brought the telegram. It was bald-headed with age, but still legible. The boy was prostrate with travel and exposure, but still alive, and went out to condole with him and get his last wishes and send him for the ambulance. He was awaiting to collect transportation before turning his passing spirit to less serious affairs. I found him strangely intelligent, considering his condition and where he is getting his training. I asked him at what hour the telegram was handed to the HC in Boston. He answered brightly that he didn't know. I examined the blank, and sure enough, the weary Boston HC had thoughtfully concealed that statistic. I asked him at what hour it had started from Boston. He answered up and brightly as ever said he didn't know. I examined the blank, and sure enough, the Boston HC had left that statistic out in the cold too. In fact, it turned out that to be an official concealment, no blank was provided for its exposure, and none required by the law, I suppose. It is a good one-sided idea, I've remarked. They can take your money and ship your telegram next year if they want to. You've no redress. The law ought to extend the privilege to all of us. The boy looked upon me coldly. I asked him when the telegram reached York Harbor. He pointed to some figures following the signature at the bottom of the blank, 12:14. I said it was now 1:45 and asked, "Do you mean that it reached your morgue an hour and a half ago?" He nodded assent. It was at that time half an hour too late to be of any use to me. If I wanted to go and meet my people, which was the case, for by the wording of the message you can see that they were to arrive at the station at 11:45, why did your HC send me this useless message? Can't he read? Is he dead? It's the rules. No, that does not account for it. Would he have sent it to me if it had been 3 years old? I, in the meantime, deceased and aware of it. The boy didn't know. Because, you know, a rule which required him to forward to the cemetery today a dispatch due 3 years ago would be as good as a rule as one which would require him to forward a telegram to me today, which he knew had lost all of its value an hour or two before it started. The construction of such a rule would discredit an idiot. In fact, an idiot, I mean a common, ordinary Christian idiot. You understand? Would be ashamed of it, and for the sake of reputation wouldn't make it. What do you think? He replied with me much natural brilliance that he wasn't paid for thinking. This gave me a better opinion of the commercial intelligence pervading his morgue than I had before. It also softened my feelings toward him, and also my tone, which had hitherto been tinged with bitterness. Let bygones be bygones, I said gently. We are all erring creatures and mainly idiots, but God made us so that it is dangerous to criticize. Sincerely, Samuel Langhorne Clements. Narrated by Conan Stewart for Tales Reawakened on YouTube.